Hey, welcome to Transform Your Workplace. I'm Brandon Laws. Every episode, we sit down with workplace experts to give you practical ideas you can actually use. No fluff, no corporate jargon, just real conversations about making work better. Before we get into today's episode, a quick word about our sponsor, Xenium HR. If you're a leader spending more time on HR headaches and payroll problems than actually growing your business, you're not alone. Every payroll question seems to trigger 5 more questions for HR. And if your HR and payroll are scattered across multiple vendors who don't talk to each other, you're stuck managing it all yourself. Xenium brings HR, payroll, and benefits together under one roof with a dedicated team that knows your business. So you can stop juggling vendors and start focusing on what matters. Learn more at xeniumhr.com. All right, today's guest is Dr. Paul Zak. He's a behavioral neuroscientist who spent over 25 years studying trust at a biological level. Not the values poster on a wall, the kind you can actually measure, build, and use to drive real performance. Here's what you're going to take away from this conversation. First, trust isn't a soft skill. It's a measurable biological response. And Paul will walk you through the specific behaviors that build it and the ones that destroy it. Second, he'll share why autonomy and coaching outperform micromanagement every single time, and what daily habits like a 5-minute stand-up can do for your team. Third, we'll dig into why recognition needs to happen fast, feel personal, and come from peers to actually stick. And finally, we'll talk about why human connection at work matters more than ever in a world full of AI and remote work, and simple ways to strengthen it starting today. All right, this one is packed. Let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Dr. Paul Zak. Paul, it's a pleasure to have you on Transform Your Workplace. Thanks for coming on the show.
Brandon, let's do some transforming.
You've a lot of books, got TED Talks, and so I want to cover a lot of different areas. And I want to start with this. So you've spent years studying trust at a biological level. And when leaders hear trust, I think they often think to values posters, good intentions. But what does trust actually look like in day-to-day behavior at work?
Yeah, so I'm a behavioral neuroscientist. That means I measure brain activity to understand why people do what they do. And so I'm skeptical of anything in which I can't measure brain activity and behavior. So it's really nice that we put up posters about our values and how much we value our employees or whatever, but I'm much more interested in the behaviors. And so when we started looking at how humans congregate, and one of the amazing things about humans is we can put us in a room and we just get along almost all the time. Chimpanzees don't do that. Gorillas don't do that, right? We call gregariously social. So what's the mechanism? Obviously, we have some frictions, right? That's to be expected. Even with our families, we have frictions, people we love. So I started looking at trust as this important lubricant that reduces frictions and improves team performance. And we identified this neurochemical oxytocin as a key signaling molecule that says, hey, Brandon is someone I want to hang around. He seems safe. He seems someone I can work with. So it really hadn't been studying humans before we started doing this in the early 2000s, but a rich animal literature. And what oxytocin does is it increases our ability to understand and feel the emotional states of others. So we have big brains. We have this cognitive ability to say, oh, if I were Brandon in this situation, I would probably do this thing. That's a cognitive approach. But why do you care about this thing? Why are you turned on? Why are you excited? Why are you energetic? That's what oxytocin does. And so it links us emotionally, which makes us very effective social creatures.
For leaders who aren't scientists and they hear the word oxytocin and they might glaze over, what behaviors reliably increase it at work and what diminishes oxytocin?
Right. So we have found over now 25 years plus of research by our lab, and we published the first protocol to measure oxytocin in humans and can manipulate this pharmacologically and have done this. I've done this hundreds of times safely. Haven't killed anybody yet, which is, who knows what could happen. Basically, it's positive social behavior. So almost anything in which people are interacting in a reciprocal way, you're nice to me, I'm nice to you, will reduce oxytocin release. In my 2017 book, Trust Factor, we identified these 8 foundations for organizational trust that facilitate those social interactions and therefore oxytocin release and higher performance. So think of like all the ways you can design ways for people to get to know each other. So as a concrete example, I was an early consultant to Zappos, online shoe and clothing seller, when they first started, when Tony Hsieh was running it. And they wanted to be the happiest place to work. And so they would have, block parties in which everyone would go, food and drinks and music. They would have, they built a headquarters in downtown Las Vegas. By the way, you can go tour their headquarters. So if anyone's interested in high performance organizations, if you're in Vegas, do the Zappos tour. I think it's $10, but who cares? You can actually see how this works. So a lot of open spaces, wireless couches, outdoor patios. And so we want to facilitate people getting to know each other. So Brandon, I used to be super skeptical of the CEO goes, oh, we're going to go whitewater rafting this weekend, the whole team. I'm like, that seems like a waste of time. But once I started doing the biology of trust, it turns out that moderate stressors will actually increase our ability to trust each other. So if we're thrown together on a whitewater raft or zip lining or whatever, then we have to work together. And I'm seeing you under pressure. I have to support you. You have to support me. We start to establish these strong bonds that induce reciprocal oxytocin release. So now when I get back in the office, I don't just do, hey, Brendan, how are you? Good, how are you? Like, holy crap, last weekend was crazy, dude. So I think all that is really important. Happy hours, a little bit of alcohol reduces some of those social barriers. Not a lot's bad, but a little bit's important. And I almost feel like this is the stuff we learned in kindergarten. Say please and thank you. Try to be nice to people. So before we recorded, I said when I worked in consulting, I had a boss who was kind of a screamer, which I don't respond to that. It's not my thing. But like, give me a task, give me some people to work with. I will get in it. Like, I love working on stuff. Let me get to know those people. So I do think that two takeaways here. Trust is an objective, measurable component. So in the Trust Factor book, we have a free website. It's ofactor.com. You can actually take a survey and measure organizational trust and the factors that create it. What are those behaviors? So first of all, free plug. Use all the free stuff, you guys. Why not? It's out there. And then the second is, don't think about human beings as human capital. I think that's a terrible term. They're human beings. They're going to have good days and bad days. They have emotions, and those emotions tell us what's important. And so if I can connect to you emotionally, if I can see you as a human being, I'm going to get better performance out of my team. So simple example how to do that. Instead of walking in on Monday and saying, hi to you, Brandon, how's your weekend? Good, how are you? Put an adjective in. Say, hey, Brandon, you look happy, sad, tired, hungover, whatever. And now we have a conversation about your life, right? And you go, oh man, I'm having my dog died. I'm over the weekend and I'm going to have a bad day today. Hey, now I've just learned about you. I've learned about what you care about. Oh, Brandon has a dog. He loves his dog. Like, oh, dude, I'm sorry about that. So now I'm connecting with you. So if you're a leader, you've got to spend time connecting to the people who are your direct reports. If you're not, then you're treating them as human capital, which are replaceable machines. And replaceable machines don't have emotions and they don't really care as much about the outcomes as people with emotional responses.
It's pretty incredible, like what our bodies are doing when we have those moments, whether they're the happy ones or the sad ones. And I can think back to moments where you have those kinds of conversations and you lean into the discussion, you feel the trust there and the connection, and you can build on that. Whereas I've been in part of other conversations that are tougher and there's resistance, and somebody might be angry, screaming, whatever, and my body's doing the weirdest things. I'm like flush in the face and just don't feel comfortable. I don't feel safe. What is our bodies doing in those moments?
Yeah, so emotional states are contagious, both positive and negative, right? So if you think about watching the opening of any Mission Impossible movie or James Bond movie, right, where the bullets are flying at them and like our heart rates go up, we start to sweat, right, because we're absorbing that emotional state. And that's one of the keys that has made humans so successful, right? Putting men on the moon and, all the stuff we've done together. From a leadership perspective, you can also do the opposite. That is, if I'm excited about this, and so we're talking about how the brain values experiences in a second, but if I'm excited about the thing we're doing, I can infect other people with that excitement, right? And we know that happens, right? These amazing, charming leaders. And when you see great leaders, they do this sense of charm. They're outliers. I mean, Elon Musk is, whatever, on Asperger's, but even he gets really excited about stuff, right? He's jumping up and down and, he's like, holy crap. I'm like, okay, if Elon cares this much about stuff, I got to be on board. And so In research over the last 10 years, we identified a network in the brain that values social emotional experiences. That network, I called it immersion. It has two core components. One is to have a really valuable experience, have to be present. Or if I'm distracted over here, Ben, I'm not going to have a nice time talking to you. And the second is that experience has to generate what I call emotional resonance. It's got to generate this emotional response in me so that I really care about it. So this is driven by two neurochemicals, dopamine and oxytocin, that induce electrical activity that we can measure. And we built a company around measuring that. So anyone can measure what someone loves in real time by using these technologies. And so it's used, for example, in corporate training. So publicly, one of the longest term users of our software, the immersion software, is Accenture. So Accenture, which is about a $20 billion revenue company, will spend about $1 billion annually upskilling their employees. They're serious about this. And you see a lot of long tenure employees at Accenture. So how did they evaluate the ROI on that? There's a lot of money. Well, it was that post-event survey we've all done. Did you like the lunch? How did you think of the keynote speaker? Was he good? Was he bad? I don't care. Remember, I'm a behavioral neuroscientist. I want to know, did that information shake up your brain so much that when you get back in the office on Monday, you're like, oh, holy crap, here's 3 things I can do. They're going to create value for the organization. And so with this technology in which we apply algorithms to signals we're pulling from smartwatches and fitness wearables, Accenture found that during training, people cannot stay neurologically immersed, that is, absorb the value of that experience, process it neurologically, without a break for more than 20 minutes. So they've broken their training down into 20-minute segments. So say the facilitator talks for more than 20 minutes, and then maybe you do table work for 20 minutes, and then maybe you debrief for 20 minutes. So kind of key takeaway, if I want to really make an impact and influence people's behaviors, short and intense is better than long and drawn out. So because the brain is so energy hungry, it wants to return to baseline really strongly and just idle. If I want to influence you so you get excited and you perform at your best, I need you to be not at idle. I need you to be, in third gear with the gas down. So how do I do that? I, as a leader, have to do that myself. And I've got to communicate in that way that has that value and creates that emotional response. And if you are connected to me as a friend, as a colleague, because we have happy hour on Fridays, or we went whitewater rafting or whatever, it's so much easier to infect you because the kind of normal barriers we have, that friction, is reduced.
Many organizations say that they value trust, but they still heavily rely on controls, rules, approvals, surveillance. Have you done research on this? What is the real cost of that type of approach when it comes to trust?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think in the world of, hybrid or remote work now, there are a lot of companies that want to monitor you every second of the day. So what we find in the data is that autonomy is a very strong promoter, not only of trust, right? If you have autonomy, for example, you work at home, then obviously my boss trusts me unless you're tracking my keystrokes or calling me every 3 minutes. So there's a couple ways that trust improves performance, again, multiply measured. Productivity, job satisfaction, things like that. One is that if you are trained well, you want to commit to what you're doing. If I'm micromanaging you, then you're just going to do what I tell you to do. You're not going to innovate. You're not committed emotionally, right? We're back to emotions. So if I train you extensively, I should also delegate generously. Now, I want to hold you to milestones. Trust doesn't mean I let you go. From a leadership perspective, my job is check-ins, right? I want to make sure you're making progress, real milestones. I'm going to coach you to high performance. And, sometimes on my team, I say, hey, I know over the course of the next 3 months on this project, you're going to kind of hate me. You're going to be frustrated because I'm going to push you to be better than you think you can be. I'm going to push you to get as much out of this as we can, given the time constraints and money constraints. And that's okay. That's my job. My job is to coach you to the highest performance. But when you do that, I'm also giving you some freedom so that you can innovate because you are doing the frontline work. I'm just managing that work and setting up strategies and making sure we hit our milestones. And so by having that open conversation, then we're in this kind of coaching mode, which is really more of a servant leader model. So I want to have you be fully committed cognitively and emotionally, and I call this emotional labor. I want you to commit emotional labor to what we're doing. You really have to give a crap about this thing to do it well, because work's hard. Like, that's why you get paid, right? Work's hard. Now, it should also be satisfying, but it's much more satisfying when you're doing it the way you want to do it. Having said all that, again, I love the a 5-minute standing daily huddle, which I do in all my organizations. And it's basically just 3 questions every morning. Brandon, what'd you do yesterday? What's your plan today? What do you need help with? That's all, right? I'm moving around. I'm talking to people. I had a new lab built out a few years ago, and the contractor said, which corner do you want your office in? I'm like, no office. I'm always moving, right? I'm going to be working with every team there. I don't need an office. I got a laptop. I'm just going to move it around, right? So when we think about that as leadership, as this coaching model, I want to coach people to performance. Again, I'm going to be frustrated. Having said that, these are human beings, not human capital, which means some people will have some bad days. Now, if you have 2 weeks in a row of bad days, we got to have a conversation, right? Maybe you need time off. Maybe this is not the right job for you. I wrote in the Trust Factor book, my book Trust Factor, that I have fired over 100 people, and probably half of those took me to lunch afterwards because I've coached that person. I've worked them. I worked so hard to have them meet the goals they need, and they're frustrated. And then you go, Bob, I think your time here's up. I just think, it's just not like we both thought this would be a great fit. I just think it's not working out. And you see their shoulders drop and they go, oh yeah, I got to go somewhere else. I'm like, awesome. We'll pay you for 2 more weeks. I'll write you a good letter. You're a fine person. It just didn't work out here, right? We just didn't think it worked. Other than people stealing. If you're stealing, you're gone. I don't even care. Like that hasn't happened to me very often. But, I think also there's there's a long answer for a great question. I want to answer it fully.
That's great.
If we look at the data on record low unemployment rates in the US and every developed and even middle income countries now below replacement fertility, we are not minting new humans. So I really want to keep everybody who's a high performer in my network. So I have many people in which I do forward-looking annual reviews. What's our plan for next year? Backward looking is too late because I'm coaching you. I know what's happening with you all the time. And sometimes people say, you know what? I really want to work in tech. I want to go work at Google or Meta. I'm like, okay, great. I know people there. I'll make some connections for you. And why would I do that? Because I'm a sweet, dear person. Or because now I got a guy at Meta or Google or whatever, right? So I can call them up. Hey, maybe we do a project together. And what happens often is those people will work at some big company for 2, 3, 4 years. I get an email going, hey, you guys aren't hiring, are you? Because I'd really like to come back and work for you. And I'd rehire these people who have new skills that some of their company paid for that they can share with our team. And so I think, again, thinking about these human beings as valuable and precious changes the way we think about how we run businesses or any organization. And ultimately, given the title of this great podcast, it is transformative for those individuals who realize that they are so valuable and performing at such a high level in their organizations. That job satisfaction is a key to sustaining long-term profits, right? Profits are driven by humans. Until our robot overlords take over, it's the humans who are creating profit. So I really want to nurture these humans and make sure that they have effective work lives, that they have physical safety, emotional safety, and they have good home lives. Otherwise, your home life sucks, you're going to be a bad employee, right? I mean, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, because people bring that stuff to work with them, right, no matter what.
And vice versa. I don't want to grind someone down. And as I mentioned, I have worked in places that have ground me down, where you go home and you got nothing left. And now your personal life begins to suck. And now we have this negative loop. So I think if we think about sustainability of profits, then we have to think about long-term. We need these humans to be sustainable. And I have many times that people work with me because I use adjectives, as I mentioned. I'll see someone come in and go, gosh, you don't look good. What happened? Oh, I was up all night with my kid had the flu. I'm like, hey, can you check in with your team? Like, if you're making your mom, go home. So I'm really against presentism, right? So I don't want you to be here just to clock in 8 hours. Check in, go home, get some rest, right? And then come back tomorrow with some energy. So because hiring is just too damn hard. As you know, it's about a year's salary to hire someone, a professional that you've lost. So I don't want to bear that $100,000 cost. Every day you go home, if you're not feeling well or you just can't perform, or I'm in software, right? So I have developers, and every developer, as far as I can tell, is like, 9 p.m. until 4 a.m. workers. I don't care. If you're making your milestones, if you can send us stuff in the morning and, you can do a phone call when I need you, sure, work whenever you want. What do I care?
You wrote the Trust Factor, I think it was 2017. So 8 years ago, this is pre-pandemic. There were some businesses and people working remotely at the time, but I think for the rest of us, we are thrust in this hybrid or remote work environment in 2020. And I'm curious if this conversation about trust has changed or if we have to do things differently. I know a lot of leaders are really still struggling with this to connect their teams, to build trust in a remote environment.
It's a great question. And as you can imagine, being a trust expert, I was doing a lot of work with executives when the pandemic started resolving and, this sort of back to work issue. So a couple things. I think what we're finding in the data, as you probably know, is when people have the opportunity to work in a hybrid sense, you'll see Wednesdays are the most common days people come in, and then Tuesday, Thursday, and then people often choose to work at home Mondays and Fridays. So I think 3 days a week is pretty reasonable. Having said that, what we find in the data is that when people are physically together in the office, you get much more value from the experience of working neurologically. So particularly, I'm sure I'm NDA'd, but the big tech companies like the Magnificent Seven have I think all of those, maybe not NVIDIA, but I think the other 6 have used our software. Maybe I just now violated the NDA, but most of the other 6 have used our software as an employee benefit because they understand that if employees are beaten down emotionally, don't have emotional fitness, then they're not going to be sustainable employees. And then again, they burn that $100,000 to rehire or more. And so when we measure, when these individuals share their data, these organizations, anonymized, of course, I don't know who these people are, but we look at the days at work in the office and the days at work at home, you actually get more neurologic value from being in the office. Even though, yes, you have to wear real pants and you got that damn commute, but you also have the lunch with someone from a different building, and you have those random collisions, and you have that way to share information. So humans will naturally chit-chat, right? That's what we do. If we're in meetings, you and I chit-chatted for a couple of minutes before we started recording. That's just what normal humans, healthy humans do. But at work, I get to do that 5, 6, 7, 8 times. I'm bumping into rando people. And it's really valuable. And guess what? It builds trust.
I think a lot of managers or leaders worry about being too vulnerable because it makes them look weak. But I've always been a proponent of vulnerability as a point of connection and trust. So what does the data actually say about vulnerability and leadership credibility?
Vulnerability is really a superpower if you're a competent leader. So the head of the SAS Institute, big software company in North Carolina, talked about vulnerability as a superpower. So very successful executive, was one of the founders of SAS Institute. And he said in something I read that as they moved into things like machine learning and AI, like he's not an expert in that. And he I'm not going to fake it. Like your team knows what you know and they work with you. And so if you're a competent leader and say, look, I don't really know what we're doing with AI, but you guys are smart and you're going to tell me what we need. And I'm going to give you feedback and be critical. And we're going to be a new AI focused, statistical analysis company. And so by building that trust, by saying, hey, I don't know what's there, then, you're empowering individuals to, again, have that emotional commitment to the outcome. Now, if you're incompetent and you're like, I don't know what the hell we're doing, like, okay, well, that's not so good. So if you're incompetent, you got other issues and you're going to get pushed out of the side. I think it's the same thing in these conversations. If I want to get to know you, Brandon, I've got to know something about you as a human being, you in your work life. So one of the things I talked about in the Trust Factor book was something I call ovation, celebrating victories. Right? Someone led this team, someone satisfied this customer goal, finished this project, whatever it is. And when I celebrate that victory for a couple of reasons. One, I want to recognize these people who are high performers and set expectations for everybody else. I'm going to do this publicly. But when I do that, I want to give you something tangible. If I know that you love coffee or you love whiskey or whatever, I want to give you a basket of that and go, hey, Brandon, his team kicked ass. We had this incredibly tough project. It was under the gun, deadlines. And let me tell you, Brandon, I have held hundreds of these ovations around the world. 100% of the time, that team leader who's being recognized will say, because they're healthy human beings, oh, it wasn't just me, but Sue on my team was amazing. Like she grinded all this data, she worked nights, and then Bob, this other thing. And all of a sudden now we're talking about and sharing best practice. And so by celebrating those victories, but also tangibly showing those employees or those direct reports, I know about you personally. So there are companies that even will bring in the families for these big ovations. They will, like someone's being recognized, but they're not going to tell the person, and they'll let the spouse know, they'll let the children know, hey, you know what, your wife or husband. Why? Because that wife or husband is allowing their spouse to put a lot of energy, cognitive energy and emotional energy into forwarding the goals of this organization? Why not celebrate the family? I think it's really important. I've worked a lot with police departments. Policing, what a mess. I mean, who wants to go into policing at this point, right? And I've worked with them and said, bring the families in. For policing, you're working nights, you're working weekends. It screws up your family life. Thank the spouse, right? Have a picnic for the spouses. Bring the kids in. Let them see the canine units, whatever it is. Make them feel like they're part of the family, because humans will form these quasi families all the time at work. And so we should celebrate that.
How do you tell the difference between genuine trust building and connection versus manipulation? I think for some people, they're not intuitive to this, and it's sometimes hard to tell a difference. Have you done the research on this?
We have. Yeah, great question, too. So I wrote a book in 2022 called Immersion, The Science of the Extraordinary and the Source of Happiness. And the last chapter of that book, or the second last chapter, is on the ethics of persuading people. The book's about the neuroscience of persuasion and how to influence others, which social creatures like humans do all the time. I've been married 30 years. I'm still trying to persuade my wife to stay married to me, right? If I'm a total jerk to her, at some point she's going to kick me out. So persuasion itself is not bad, but it's got to be genuine. So what we find in the research, this is all public research, people can Google my name and find it, that when people are manipulative, absent psychopaths, which I've studied criminal psychopaths a lot too, and that's another story. But for healthy humans, if I'm being manipulated, I will get a stress response. Like we have these, unconscious tells. So people don't like manipulating others, and we kind of figure that out pretty rapidly if we're being manipulated. So you've got to really walk the walk, right? So if I say, look, this is a really important project. I know, Brandon, that you are up to your eyeballs in work, but I've got to ask you to do something else. I'm going to pay you more. I'm going to give you some more help, but you're the only one who can do this. And you're so essential to the success of this project in our organization that I just need you to kick it up for the next 2 weeks. I know it sucks, and I'm sorry. I'll give you time off, whatever it is, but just being honest with you, right? As opposed to rank and yank. So even dear Jack Welch, before he died, said, Management 2.0 is about trust, because trust is such an effective lever to performance. And how do you do that? You've got to open up yourself. Hey, I need you. I need your help. So rank and yank means I'm going to pit employees against each other. Oh, that's a terrible idea. Even, Google did that in the very beginning, and they very quickly got rid of it.
I know recognition is huge, probably for boosting the oxytocin and building trust inside of a workplace. What sort of recognition tactics or programs are super effective in extrapolating the oxytocin, the connection that we have with each other?
Yeah, so from a brain perspective, anything that's happened more than a week ago is like it never happened. It's ancient history. So it's really having these recognition programs that are close in time to when that goal is met or exceeded, tangible, public. It's better if it comes from peers than if it comes from a leader, really meaningful to that individual, and is inclusive. And so I think we want to, people say, like, what about introverts? Introverts like to be recognized. They just don't talk as much, but they love it, right? Now, if you have people with Asperger's or autism, right, you might want to chat with them privately. Maybe they really don't want to be on the stage. But for most, even people with Asperger's, it's wonderfully recognized by this community of others that depend on you. So I'm pro-human all the way. I think the humans are extraordinarily valuable. As I said, we're not making much more of them. And if we celebrate those human beings, and by the way, coach on them failures. Failures are a great learning experience. As you know, you're on the West Coast like me. Silicon Valley is very common to have these monthly congratulations, you screwed up celebrations. These like the last Friday of the month, we have pizza and beer. Everyone talk about all the mistakes they made. Why would we do that? First of all, vulnerability. Now I'm getting to know you, but also I don't want other people to make that mistake, right? And if I'm innovating, a positive deviation from the norm we call an innovation, a negative deviation we call a mistake. So again, my job as leader is to mitigate those mistakes because I'm coaching you every day, checking on what you're doing, giving you feedback, but celebrating those innovations.
Looking ahead with what's coming or is already here, AI, automation, and then constant change that we're experiencing on the daily, why do you think trust and the human connection matters more than ever?
Yeah, I think it's so easy. I'm sure, like you, I travel a lot. I was in New York City a couple of weeks ago, and some problem with the shower and the bathroom got all wet, and I had a human who in the hallway, service maid, who came in and fixed the problem for me. A human. I thought, a robot's never like. I can't even explain on the phone or to a bot or something. And you've had this automated call center thing where you're going through, oh, it's the worst. So I think human touch is going to be extraordinarily important. So a lot of the work I'm doing now is in healthcare. And I think AI will put the care back in healthcare, where the machine will produce a probabilistic diagnosis, given all this information, giving the millions and millions of records that it's seen, as opposed to a physician who may have seen thousands of patients like this, hasn't seen millions and hasn't seen every contingency. And so now the physician can talk, or clinician can talk more with that patient. Hey, you got a 98% chance that you have this thing. We're going to treat it with this. The first 2 days on this med, you're going to kind of feel like crap. And so we're going to give you anti-nausea medication so you can manage that. And by day 3, people generally feel better. And in a week, you're going to be feeling great. If you're not, by day 5, feeling pretty perky, chat me on the screen on your online chart. And it could be you have this other rare factor. None of the labs suggest this. Like having that conversation would be so nice. So for me, from a science perspective, I want my doctor to use probabilities when he or she talks to me, right? And so I think it's the same kind of thing with other work tasks. Think of this as AI giving you probabilities of how to do something, in which you want to say, okay, here's a core foundation for this, but I'd really like to put some personal touch, some creativity, and enjoy it. So when we measure, I mentioned we have this technology. Can I talk about it? It's a free app called Six.
Absolutely. Yeah, please.
On the app and Play Store that all day just measures what you love doing so you can do more of it. And we find that about 80% of these high value moments are social. Many of them happen at work when you're physically together. For me, I write every day, and I'll get a lot of these high value, neurologic value moments writing because I like writing. It's creative, it's technical. I don't want AI to do that for me. And you know that you've already received, as I have, AI written emails, and you could just tell or text or whatever, like, come on, like, sure, maybe do a first pass with AI, but I think of AI as not as artificial intelligence, but augmented intelligence. This is going to augment what people are going to do. And certainly you want to learn how to use all those AI tools, or the tools at least that are going to be useful for you. But I don't think it's going to replace that human touch. I think it will make it more important.
I so agree with you. I mean, I see so many great opportunities for AI now and in the future, but I worry that people are now substituting the human connection for their AI chatbot and using it for things that it really wasn't meant to do. And, I see this with my kids too. They're so tied into technology, and kids are becoming increasingly isolated. Those kids grow up to become adults in our workplaces. Are we going to have an anxious generation? I think we already do, but are we going to have people, low on the oxytocin, more depressed, more anxious than ever before? And leaders are going to struggle to build the trust, build the connection and happiness in the workplace.
Absolutely. So I think you put your finger on it. And here's the good news. This social connection system using dopamine and oxytocin is very adaptive. So the more we connect with others, the easier it gets. And so I think we've got to train ourselves to really be connected. And that's why going to the office is important. Going to school is important. There's a couple little things that I've done. I always run experiments on myself. So, because I'm curious. I started talking years ago, talk to people in elevators, say hi to them. And what's interesting, it's like you're in a hotel or something, you're going somewhere, and about half the people kind of freak out, which is, I don't know, makes me happy for some reason. We're in a box together. We're aware there's other humans in here. And the other half, you have this nice 20 or 30-second conversation. Oh, you're coming in for, I was in an elevator recently in New York with 2 ladies talking in what I thought was Dutch, and I've been in the Netherlands a bunch. Anyway, one lady got out, and I'm like, that sounded like Dutch to me. I'm not a linguist, but she goes, oh my God, how'd you know it was Dutch? Yeah, we just in from Amsterdam. And so we're chatting and like, oh, I was there a couple of weeks ago and blah, blah, blah. See, this really nice conversation. I've never seen those ladies again, but that just helps me maintain my ability to connect at all times. And I think for young people, particularly going through COVID with my own children, you saw that they just kind of degrade these skills. So we really got to extend them. Hence, pro happy hour, pro free lunch at work. I've been to Google headquarters in Mountain View, I don't know, a dozen times. Every time I go, because I'm giving a talk or something, every time I go, it's like a lunch. And if someone, these joint, you've been there, right? These picnic table kind of things. And people sit next to each other, they don't know each other. And like, oh, you work in that machine learning group. I heard about that. Oh, I'm in the vision group. I'm on there talking and boom. So if you're a leader listening to this, you should not play fair. Never play fair. You want to win, cheat. Bring the lunches in. If people don't show up on Fridays, first of all, you need to show up on Fridays. Have pizza and beer. Have, I don't know, whatever it takes. Have a movie night. I don't really care what it is. Get people to come together. If they come together in a relaxed setting, they're going to get to know each other. And then put a little stress in there. Have a game, have a competition, have a whatever it is, so that people can see each other in different situations, not just as worker bees.
I'll end with this because I've watched your old TED Talk. I think it was from 2012, but there was a line at the very end where you were showing how people can immediately boost their oxytocin, and you walked off stage and gave a man a hug. I don't know if that was a plant or if you just randomly hugged somebody, but you said hugs could be the simplest way to boost our oxytocin and connect with one another. What are some other simple things like that? And also, why do you refer to yourself as a love doctor? That was another piece I wanted to ask.
Yeah, not me. A Fast Company gave me that title, I think in 2010 or something, some, cover article introducing Dr. Love. But I think, if we think of love in the philia sense, about really caring about people around us, what we find is any kind of joint movement will induce oxytocin release. A smile will induce oxytocin release. Eye contact. So we're talking about the loneliness epidemic. Just look at people. So I call this listening with your eyes. I want to give you my full attention. I don't want to have some screen in front of me, right, that's, doing whatever. I want to be present, and I want to, again, train myself to be there and emotionally open. So you mentioned vulnerability earlier. If I share something personal about myself, people will generally recognize that and begin to share. So I don't want to I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't want to get involved in people who report to me personal lives. But if I want the best performance out of them, I need to. I need to know about their kids. I need to know about their spouses. I need to know what their hobbies are. So I cheat as much as I can. I have happy hours. I buy pizza. I want people to get together, get to know me, let people's hair down, again, appropriately. And for me, because, I'm old enough now, I'm not scary at all, I will pre-announce the hugs. And so I hug everybody. Every once in a while, people goes, I'm not comfortable. That's fine. I'll shake hands. But yeah, I just think, the hug is another hack, right? That says, who do you hug? People you like, people you know. And so I'm going to hack that brain system all the time. So again, for people listening, think about how to hack the system to facilitate social connection, because it reduces those frictions and just makes work more productive, more satisfying, and more enjoyable.
Paul, this has been such a great discussion. The 37 minutes went by in an instant, and I could talk to you for a lot longer. But I wanted to just give you an opportunity. Anything you want to plug or ways people can connect with you and see your work?
Sure. I mean, if you're listening to this, you must be an awesome human. So you can find more about what I'm talking about at our website, which is your6.com, your and the number 6. You can email me there. And I have a simple goal. I'm trying to get 1 billion people on the planet to use our free app, the 6 app, to measure and improve their happiness. And so try it. I mean, you can always delete it, but finding out unconsciously what your brain values so you can do more of it, that's my goal for the next 10 years of my life. After that, who knows? I might jump off a cliff or something. But for the next 10 years, it's going to be all about happiness.
I love it. I will download the app right now after we're off this call. But I really appreciate you. My guest today has been Dr. Paul Zak. Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in for today's episode of Transform Your Workplace. The content on this show is strictly for general information and educational purposes only, so that you can go transform your workplace in a positive way. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this show are the guest's own and don't represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of either Xenium HR, the sponsor of the show, or me, the host, Brandon Laws. Additionally, Xenium HR or myself, Brandon Laws, doesn't endorse any guest, their business, or any organization they represent, so discretion is advised. We encourage you to work with a trusted advisor to find a custom approach that fits your organization's needs. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode.